Good evening, welcome to episode 71 of The Brewgooders. I did that on purpose, Colin, sorry. The Brewgooders dynamic duo, beer and comics. I saw Colin open his beer and I was like, yes, record. Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Colin.
Hi. That's Jeff.
And we're going to chat beer and comics. Mind say hi, give us likes, chats, and all that sort of stuff. Let us know you're here. That's always really, really fun. This week, we're going to be joined very, very soon by Rob Price to talk about his upcoming project, which is quite exciting. It's quite exciting. I watched it again just before we met. We bumped into Rob. I was like, that's just because I wanted to watch it again. It's cool. We'll just talk. We'll talk to Rob about beer and comics. So, hi everybody. Will we just bring Rob in just now?
I think so. Let's get in. Let's get Rob in and let's get talking about his comic and what he's been doing.
Here we are.
Hi. Oh, my camera's all slow. Yeah, let's do the hi. How's it going?
I would say wrong. Yeah.
At the end of the show, let's do the Charlie's Angels.
Oh yeah, you can do that. How are you?
Brilliant. Thank you. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure. And let me see, what's that? Interview with Rob Price. Oh, come on. It makes me feel kind of important or something. It's like, not necessary, but thank you very much.
So you're important to us.
Yeah.
Cheers. Now, you may not notice it, but I'm not exactly Scottish, so I have a bit of a weird accent. I hope you can understand everything I'm saying.
In fairness, you're probably the only one on the podcast at the moment. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Who are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Who are you? Sorry. I'll get my coat. Rob Price. A comic fan for many years. Kind of moved around the world a bit. Dropped out of comics, and then just within the last couple of a couple of years, started really getting back into comics. I was watching the episode 60, and you were talking about the midlife crisis. You know, maybe that's what's going on, eh? Yeah, it's about that time you kind of revert to your second childhood. So possibly that's what's going on in a way.
I think that's almost 100% accurate for just about everybody.
I don't have the money to buy a Ferrari, so it's got to be comics.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan.
You're a creator. Do you want to talk us a wee bit about what you work on and what your stuff is?
Yeah, gladly. Okay, so Ratl and Roll is something that came out of practice sketches, really. I had this thing going for a while where I just like get on the internet, get a randomizer, and just come out with like random words. And one of the times I did that, I came up with pig and rat and balloon and Amazon and this and that. And and these two characters, the pig and the rat, they just kind of like said something to me. I thought, hey, I can do something with this. And then the year before last, I actually created a 24-hour comic with the two characters. It's just a rough sketch kind of comic for me, but 24 hours, blurry-eyed, finished the project, not published. But I thought, if I can do a 24-hour comic with them, then why not do something more with them? And then I came up with the name Ratl. It's a strange spelling because I live in Germany, and you get these strange like hackle and rattle, etc. Here in Germany that don't have any e's where we'd expect e's to be, So that's why I thought, okay, so he's some kind of mysterious European rat that ends up in New York in the 1890s, and it's a world where men and women and humans. They work alongside genetically modified creatures, not just rats and pigs, but dogs and bulls. In issue 1, we get to see another rat, but also a group of bulls in a pub. And so I'm doing the thing where I'm trying to not let too much out at once. I want the reader to ask questions like, "What the heck's going on?" Is a good question. And he ends up in New York, stows away a ship, and ends up being brought into the mob to commit nefarious acts. Ooh, a preview. Arr. And the Atif Merrick. I like the format. It's I brought it out with KDP, which is Amazon, with Atif Merrick. And the good thing about the Atif Merrick, it's like a real, comic, whereas KDP's more like a trade paperback. And blurb as well, yeah? And the pages of Atif Merrick are so glossy. They're just like... My idea was to bring it out as a, hopefully partially colored, but not full color, more, sepia. But then I thought, I kind of figured, thank you. Yeah, I figured sepia would be great. However, it was a little bit cost productive for my first, solo project. So I thought, let's just go for black and white, and then maybe in future issues. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Yeah, it came out in September, and I'm working on issue 2 now. The script's more or less done, and I've actually started inking pages, layout. Yeah. So that's Rattle and Roll.
Awesome. I've got a few. I watched you sent as a YouTube link, which was a really awesome way to experience a comic. It wasn't one that there's some really interesting bits I found in it, and bits I really enjoyed. The mob, the mob character that you only really meet him at the end of the last bit, but he reminded me very much, and I don't know if this was deliberate, and I imagine the time frame actually is. It reminded me very much of the flashback sequences in Godfather Part 2.
I gotta be honest, it's years since I've seen the film, so I'm not even sure. Yeah.
There was this, it's maybe just a stereotype then, but certainly found the mob character very. He reminded me very, and even maybe just the voice you gave him in the YouTube clip. But he reminded me of the mob boss character that Don Vito murders to become like the new Don of that area of New York. And there was I was getting total mad vibes. I've read the book by Mario Puzo as well, the actual Godfather novel, and I was getting mad vibes of like that kind of era, that turn of the century New York kind of immigrants coming over and getting involved in any kind of crime, that organized crime, I should say. So it's a really awesome. That's kind of what I took from it. The flashback sequences of Godfather Part 2, but starring a rat, was kind of what I was doing.
You dirty rat! You dirty rat!
Exactly.
So far, no one said to him, "You killed my brother, you dirty rat!"
The character you've got, the rat character, Theodore, is quite interesting. He's a funny character. He's got a real personality and sense of humor, and even in just a few pages of the preview, that totally comes across. I think you really kind of set that character up really well for the rest of the story. So looking forward to kind of seeing the scrape that he's going to be getting into. Partly, I think, probably due to his own mouth getting him in trouble.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's my idea as well, and it's going to be Roll, who's going to be the one who practically gets him out at every situation. The only thing is, and I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
Rattle has a hidden agenda where it comes to Roll, and that you won't know that until you read the full comic, like the first issue, and it's going to be an internal struggle for Ratl, that's for sure.
Oh, cool. How long do you envision the series lasting? Like you said, your pencil and you're inking 2 now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to reach for five issues, and I do see that if all goes well, I could even stretch it out, maybe do different story arcs. So it's not like for me at least, it's not just going to be like a one-shot wonder. Hello, goodbye, that's it. Yeah. I could even imagine putting these two guys not just in 1890s New York, but in different situations, and I already have some ideas on how to make that possible. Am I being too mysterious? But the characters we saw in number 1, there are going to be more characters. Or they have to be, of course, otherwise it's a very limited story. So as an exclusive, if I may, this is my opening shot for there you go. There you go. If I can get it all in, it's a bit shiny. That's my opening shot for issue 2. I hope that's going to be the first page, And there you see already we have another character that we haven't seen in number 1 yet. Well, that we haven't seen in number 1.
Film noir.
Again, sorry?
It's very film noir.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for. I bought a book. The whole thing with I'm in the middle. By the way, cheers.
Oh yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
We'll get to the beer chat.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yes. The good thing. I mean, I know it sounds pretty egotistical to say, oh, the good thing about COVID. But the good thing about like lockdown is it kind of forces you to like kind of stay at home and do other stuff. So I've been getting online with, for example, Eventbrite, and just gate crashing so many different workshops and seminars, etc. And I got to be honest, I should have done that before I even started drawing issue 1, because I think I've learned so much from other people in the last 5 months since I brought Ratl and Roll out, and I'm thinking, don't get me wrong, I am happy with the way issue 1 came out, but I also see, I could have done this, maybe if I were to do it again, I could do it, but it's okay because it helps me kind of direct me for issue 2 and beyond.
I think what you're describing is a really quite a common thing it must be quite a common part of the creative process anyway. But then it's also quite interesting. We've talked on the show before with creators about how we always look at our stuff and we always think, oh, I wish I could have done that. Actually, there's elements of this panel or this part of the story that if I had a chance to rewrite it, I would write him differently, or I would shape the scene differently. But one of the more interesting elements I found last year when I released my comics is actually folk that read your comics totally pick up something different anyway. So like the things you would change and the things that you find yourself kind of stuck on are not elements of things that people even really consider.
That's true. Yeah. Only I can have my own thoughts about it. Everybody else has a different, viewpoint. Yeah, for sure.
I think that self-doubt that you have looking back at your work is probably the second biggest thing that stops people making comics. The first one is obviously just getting started in the first place. But I think then you start to look at stuff and kind of reassess it because you've learned over the process, or maybe even just doing the one book. And you keep thinking, oh, should I go back and fix that or change that? And you become obsessed with that and never actually get the book out. So at least you're past that stage.
Well, yeah, I hope. In this week, I've made more moves towards it. But you're absolutely right, Colin. I got to say, I mean, I brought the first one out in September. the script, I'd already written it before I brought the script for 2 I wrote before I brought number 1 out. Practically, I've just made some alterations. But since September, I've not really done that much. I mean, I've done some setup work, but I think it's right what you're saying. And the workshops, on one hand, it's great because I'm learning new stuff. I'm learning new people as well, and I'm getting some great advice. But also, it kind of like pushes you back. It stops you a little because, like, do I need to learn more before I even start with number 2? And it does make you uncertain. So I'm hanging out with a lot of people on Twitter, some CG UK guys. I don't know if you know Commie Mark. Capaticus is the new name for, and I don't think I should say the last name, the old name. And those guys have got some great advice. And you just don't know, is it now the time to go for, like the next step, or do I still need to hold back, or it's kind of unsettling, and it gets you a bit nervous. I used to have more hair as well. Sure.
It's so rewarding, and I do remember having a conversation with Colin on Facebook last year, where but having something done and having something out is just there's not really a vibe like it. I remember actually. It actually might not have been about the release. I think it was more when I finished my first draft and sent it to Colin. I was like, I wrote a comic, and he's like, yeah, it feels good, eh? It's like, yeah. Like, it does. Like, I think just having something is incredible.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see how many folk start that journey and never finish it. And actually, as I said, like, we've both looked into your work for you coming to join us and both thoroughly enjoyed it. So, these anxieties you're having and stuff like that are common and totally understandable, and totally things that we relate to. They're also things that everyone else seems to enjoy your stuff.
Great, thank you. And so how long was your journey then, Jeff? How long did it take you to like bring out your comic, or to make it, from idea to actually having it in your hand?
I don't know. We're interviewing you, man. Idea, probably quite a few years, like the basis of some of the stuff. I don't know, when I have thought about when I would consider the journey started, and I think last sort of summer 2019 I put pencil to paper to start writing it. And actually when I consider it that way, it might have been maybe May, June, July-ish, because I remember sitting talking to Colin about it, and then at some point, and then I wrote it, and then I think the first draft was with Colin in August, September, October-ish time.
Yeah.
So I think from starting the process to printing, it was about 10 months, 11 months-ish. It was released. It was released in the first week of May, I want to say. How about you then? So when did you start?
Oh, well, 24-hour comic day. 24-hour comic day was in, what is that? The first week in October, and I think I started really putting it out in December. So about 10 months is about right. Yeah. I remember. I hadn't yet finished the script, and my wife and I went on a short break for Christmas the previous year, to Aachen, which is just on the German-Dutch border. And I remember I was actually thumbnailing, during that trip. So, and that was Christmas. So I hadn't yet finished the full script, and like I say, I actually had it finished probably sometime around July, but then there was a problem with I tried uploading the whole comic to, I don't know if it was KDP or if it was one of the other platforms, and they immediately picked up that the font I was using, Segoa, was like a pay. You had to pay for it if it was a what do you call it? If it was a commercial project. And because, obviously it's my first time putting out a comic, I had to like make sure that, I kind of kept within a certain budget of practically nothing. That I thought, well, okay, then I'm going to have to go through the whole thing, change the script. And Clip Studio Paint is great, but not for text. The text, you have to kind of like, you can't just select all and click one button and then change all the text at the same time. You have to go into every bubble, select all the text, and then click, and then change the text. So that took a while.
I just get my letterer to do it.
See, this is where I'm going wrong. Yeah.
You've got to get the team together.
Yeah. It helps that you are my team, Colin. Colin, I want to throw that same question if Rob doesn't mind. I'd like to ask Colin that question because Colin's comic output, I think, is comparatively high in comparison to ours. How long do you find that you go from writing to having stuff?
I kind of had this rule of thumb that 9 months was what it took me to do a comic, from actually sitting down to writing it and drawing it, obviously, for a kind of 30 to 40 page comic. But looking back at the amount of stuff that I've put out, it's obviously less than that, because I have put out I've put out like 3 books in a year, which is incredible. Wow. But sometimes it's been working with other people as well, so that can reduce. But I can write a script in a couple of days, but it's maybe taken me months or even a year just rolling around in my head before I actually feel comfortable to start putting it down on paper.
Yeah, in which case it's not really just the 3 days then, is it?
It's just you get a spark of an idea and you just keep it in the back of your head, and then 6 months later something else happens, or you read something or you see something on TV, and it just kind of goes together and you go, oh, those 2 things make the story, and then you're at a point where you can start writing it down.
Yeah.
I always remember, I think it's maybe Flight of the Eagle that stands out in my mind. And I don't know, like, obviously you're talking about those sparks, Colin, in the back of your mind, but I sort of feel like you and me were drunk on a bus coming back from Edinburgh one night, and then Flight of the Eagle just sort of appeared a couple months later. That's what it feels like. I know that process is probably much longer. It feel like you were kind of telling me about an idea you had, and all of a sudden it was out. And I remember being like,
Flight of the Eagle and the previous war story, I kind of did draw them in about a month, and it was kind of like Christmas was over. I'm gonna spend January and do as much of that comic as possible, and that's kind of what I did. So the production time for those books were really short compared to other stuff that I've done. It was literally doing a panel a day, sometimes 2, which has got a lot, when you're working full as well.
There's a couple of people watching. Feel free to drop us any questions. We do have a question from Jacob Price.
Oh, hey, Jake. So it's my nephew. I don't know. I don't think he'll mind if I say he's my biggest fan, but he has. It's okay. I'm the uncle, so
You're all okay. So Jacob's asking why was there any particular reason why you went with America of all places when you set the comic location up?
I think the main reason was I'd seen some. And it wasn't just the geography; it was the time as well. I think I'd seen on Facebook some colorized photos, like black and white photos that somebody had digitally colorized, and they just made it so, so current, so vivid, and it kind of. Yeah, it really got me interested. I've been to the States before, but only ever on the West Coast. So I've never been to New York, and Yeah. Previously, I never had any really incredible attraction to go to New York, but just doing research for the first book and, obviously for the other books as well, especially with the stories of immigrants and immigration in New York, really is really interesting. The whole story of the tenement houses and how, all these people were packed. I mean, it's kind of like Judge Dredd's Mega City 1 on a small scale. That you've got all these, hundreds of people in a block of, in a black block, a city block, with one toilet.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty nasty, really. Yeah. But when I do ever manage to go to New York, then that's definitely one place that I'll be checking out, is the Tenement Museum, which you can. There are videos out there that you can see. So in answer to Jake's question, it wasn't just the geography. It was I think the 1890s is definitely this time when something's happening in the US. And it's around that time that the motor car is starting to come into its own. What else have you got? I mean, the telephone and photography has already been established, but I just think it's, on recent reflection, it's kind of a fascinating period. Yeah, and that's why. Yeah.
Yeah,
all
sure
right,
is. I love that era, that kind of late Victorian era into Edwardian, because it is a time of such change, technological advancements, widening of people's worlds. They're able to travel further, and even poor people like the characters that you see in your book, are shipping off to pastures new, to these new worlds, to create a new life for themselves.
Yeah. There've been a few films this week. I mean, there was Gangs of New York, which was also in that period, and then what do you call it? The Alienist, was that the one?
Oh yeah.
The Mentalist? No, the Alienist.
Psychologist, yeah.
Yeah. That was in that period as well. The work that they've done, creating like scene setting, creating the backgrounds, etc., is just wonderful.
Awesome. Jacob's also asking, have you developed a favourite character within Ratl and Roll?
Yeah, it's got to be Ratl. Let's see. I'll have to do some digging around for it, but maybe if you're interested, of course. Some of the earlier sketches I did, again with this idea where I basically get random words, and these random words then are used to create a picture. And I don't know why, just the sorry. I mean, is it bad when I laugh at my own drawings? That kind of stuff. Hang on a sec. There you go. Where they're going over like Niagara Falls. The range of expressions I can give Ratl, because he's got these huge staring eyes. That's one. And this one is that's the original. That's the absolute. Whoops, where's my camera? Yeah, that's my absolute first one. So I don't know why I gave him these huge eyes looking over at these Amazonian warriors. And yeah, I don't know, I just kind of clicked with the idea, with the character. And
we're getting a real sense of the adventures that he's going to go on in your
story. Well, that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, and that's the idea. Because like stories, conflict, right? So you conflict, challenges, and these ideas of just random words. I thought to myself, well, precarious places, precarious situations can I put these guys in? And in fact, I started posting these on Instagram, and one keyword, one hashtag I always put in was capers. Just, I don't know why, just capers.
Yeah, it's one of those words that it has a lot of meaning.
Yep.
Almost a kind of specific meaning. You know what you're setting yourself up for. It's like when you sometimes read the blurb in a newspaper next to a movie. You know, they've got one line to sum up what a movie's about. You know, and the kind of comedy movies of the sort of, I don't know, 50s and 60s and stuff, it would usually end, you know, the little blurb would be, you know, so-and-so moves to New York with hilarious consequences. And use that phrase, you know, with every kind of comedy movie in that era, in the newspaper blurb. You know, it doesn't matter what it was about, you know, they always ended up saying with hilarious consequences. And that's every comedy movie.
You can imagine the voice as well, with hilarious consequences.
Here's a question for you on the same vibe though, because one thing I don't know if it's, maybe it should be the last thing I do, but like the last couple of times that I've done comics, Colin's, well, the two times I've ever written a comic and I've had to do the back blurb, Colin said like, well, Colin's had to tell me to do the back blurb for one thing, but then the other thing is like, I find writing descriptions of my own stuff really hard. I found that process really hard because you have to use emotive words to describe your own writing, and I've written a few things like, I can remember writing something, I can't remember quite what it was, but I used the word exhilarating, and I was like, is my comic exhilarating? I find that just that kind of process of having to almost write critically about your own stuff quite challenging, because you're not really, because you're trying to obviously then you're it's a pitch job, isn't it, at the back of your comic? It's you're trying to sell it, but then I felt really uncomfortable with that aspect. I don't know if it's just what you're saying with that. Would you be comfortable on the back of your own book writing with hilarious consequences?
I don't know about with hilarious consequences. I think I might just, somewhere in one issue, I might just slip in, you know, this is another fun mess you got me into. What did I write? I wrote, okay, the blurb I've got on the, and I think they're pretty much the same on each one. Yeah, they're a little bit different because of space, the final frontier, space restrictions. Like on two of them, and nice as well that they all come in different. Here we go. Where's the camera? They all come in different sizes as well, which is kind of cool.
Really cool.
Yeah. Let's see. So on two of them, I've got join Theodore P. Ratl on the first day of his new life in the new world. Not only is his arrival quite unorthodox, it also seems that if Ratl isn't going to find trouble, trouble is willing enough to find him. Luckily for him, he's about to meet someone who might just be more than his meal ticket.
With hilarious consequences.
With hilarious consequences. Yeah.
My wife's just off camera, and I was telling her, you were in Germany. Are you German? If you don't mind.
Nine. No.
Okay.
I'm actually from Grimsby. You may know the place. You may have heard of it.
Aware of it.
It's become quite popular in the time of Brexit.
I only know it.
You took a swig of your beer when you said that. I was like,
there's the movie The Brothers Grimsby with Sacha Baron Cohen. I think that's my only knowledge of Grimsby.
And the great thing is, it was filmed, I think, somewhere in Leeds, not in Grimsby. Yeah, no, those street scenes were actually, because apparently since the flats were knocked down in Freeman Street, that Grimsby has become too nice to film it there. That was Sacha Baron Cohen's excuse. Anyway, I was kind of miffed when I heard that he hadn't actually filmed it in Grimsby, because back in the 80s, I was an extra for Memphis Belle at Area Binbrook, which is down the road.
So the airplane, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it was great. It was great. You had like hundreds of people really wanting to be extras on this movie. And when I heard that Sacha Baron Cohen hadn't chosen Grimsby to film The Brothers Grimsby, I was like, that is a missed opportunity. There would have been so many people who would have been absolutely mad for that.
Maybe like accidentally upset them. Like he had to like he's not banned from Kazakhstan still.
Grimsby.
Grimsby came up in a conversation that I was following on Facebook this week because
really,
that's funny. A weird tangent, but I thought it was just quite a funny one. I thought it was funny enough that I told my wife about it. So like the most recent Assassin's Creed games is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I don't know if it's the most recent one, but there's it's about the Vikings invading the British coast.
Yeah,
and, Scarborough is a playable place, and then so this to start the conversation on Facebook about like the question was something like, what is your hometown, and what could you ever imagine it being part of a computer game? Because I don't think anybody in Scarborough would ever imagine that it features a location in an Assassin's Creed game. There's obviously, I can imagine, countless jokes about the Vikings stopping to play the 2P machines and all that sort of stuff. Grimsby came up in that, and it was like, and I think somebody said like, Grimsby would only feature in Assassin's Creed Valhalla as somewhere that they should never go.
Well, it's a Viking town. It is a Viking town, And I was watching The Last Kingdom a couple of weeks ago, and I was like stoked because yes, they're Vikings and they landed at Grimsby. And I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen The Last Kingdom?
I've seen some of it. First couple of series I've seen. Yeah.
It's not. I gotta say, it's not as gripping as Vikings. Vikings was much better, but it gets better. I think The Last Kingdom gets better, and they had this great thing where they have the original spelling and then it morphs into the modern spelling. And Grimsby doesn't change that much. I think it was Grimsby or Grimsby. Not Grimsby, but yeah, something close. If they went,
that concludes our conversation about beer, comics, and midtowns. Jacob, what comics inspire you specifically with regards to your drawing style?
You know what? I'm going to field that onto Colin. So, Colin, what about you, Colin? I've kind of fielded the question because I don't want to make it all about me.
We call it for an interview. We throw that to the floor.
my comic style is very much at the moment influenced by Commando comics. So much so that I'm doing a little sketchbook, one sketch a day, where I'm doing Commando style artwork and.
Whoa! Excellent.
So I'm doing this at the moment, and I just branched out. Today, I don't have to have it to hand, I don't think, but this month is the 60th anniversary of the Victor comic.
Oh.
And I don't know if it's been celebrated anywhere, but I decided there's a Victor comic Facebook page, and I put a post on yesterday saying what's everybody's favourite characters, because I fancy drawing some characters. So folk were posting up yesterday and today what their favourite characters were. So I've been looking at various Victor comics and finding pictures of the characters. Some of them I know anyway. So I've started drawing them today, and I'm going to do one, for the next couple of weeks as a sort of my own little celebration of the 60th anniversary of. And I really love those comics because they were the comics I grew up with, in the 70s. So they've really influenced my style in terms of how I draw, in particular.
Yeah.
Thomas is saying that those were great, Colin. So
yeah. Coming from Thomas, that's amazing because
I thought you'd like that.
Thomas has done artwork on war stories by Garth Ennis. In fact, I've probably got one on my shelf up there behind me, because I was certainly reading one of the books that Thomas illustrated just recently.
Also, same question to our actual guest.
Well, it's kind of cool that you tended towards the war comics. I mean, I read them as well. Cool. I read them as well, but I was really more into the humorous comics, and of course, I think that reflects in my style because I mean there you go. For example, where's my camera? There you go. That kind of mixing something like real life people with anthropomorphical characters like mice, etc. Yeah, that's kind of my obviously I grew up in the UK with the Beano, so Scotland, thank you. And also another son of Scotland, Frank McDermott, thank you. For Cheeky Weekly, which was my absolute all-time favorite. So yes, very much I was into the humor style of comics, but also 2000 AD. But partially my love of 2000 AD came a little bit later because it was more expensive. Like working class family, we couldn't all, it's going to be 7p for how much was it? Even in the early days, you're talking almost 20 pence or 18. Around the mid 80s. It was already a little bit pricier than the humorous comics. So I had to start working.
I've got an 87 2000 AD that's got, I think it was 17p. I want to say.
I'm looking at.
I could pay 17p for 2000 AD.
Yeah, 19.
Everyone rummaging for their old 2000 ADs now to see how much they cost.
Yeah, 1982 there for 18 pence.
Yeah, it's up
was
to 26 pence.
Oh, all right, okay, yeah, I was miles off.
So my, reading 2000 AD came a lot later for me. So I tend towards the humorous style of drawing, the funny comics, so to say. But I really need to work on my figure drawing for a more realistic kind of comic, which is good because this also. For example, back to this, and the more it's still comic, but it's not like total realism, but it's it's like more realistic than just the funny stuff. So that's what I'm going to go with. Yeah.
Good. Hopefully, Jacob's happy with that.
I think so. I hope nobody thinks that I'm paying Jacob to ask me questions. Keep going. Keep going.
This is my favourite, right? Because Mark Abnett's just put this up. I think this is in reflection to Scarborough. I think this is in response to Scarborough appearing on Valhalla. But imagine if you started watching last week's Brewgooders thinking, this feels familiar, and you started to see your avatar appear asking questions. And then he says straight afterwards, like, I'm a bit thick this week. Thanks, Mark. Ages ago, Ben Skay said good evening earlier on as well. I should maybe pop that in. What are you drinking? Will we chat beer for a wee bit?
Yeah, let's
all right. Alrighty. Me first or you first? I don't mind.
First,
all right. Well, the one I went for with the nice Kolsch style top is a Schwarzbier. Let me see. There you go. Mönchshof, which I take it is a German. It's not a usual beer that I drink. Got to be honest. Since moving to Germany, I've drunk a lot of Kolsch. I like Weizen, but sometimes it gives me a bit of a dicky tummy. But I went to the local drink market. Do we have a word for that in English?
I wish we did. I wish we did.
I have been away for so long,
Heaven, I think we call it.
It's kind of like a beer and wine cash and carry, and I brought out 3 different beers. The Mönchshof, which is that one. Hang on a sec. There you go. Whoops, sorry. There you go. Then Kruszewicz, which is a Polish beer. Now I know the Pilz version of this, but I have never tried the dark one yet. And whoops, it's dripping everywhere. Schwarze Abt, Neuzeller Klosterbrau, Cloister Brewery. Yeah.
Cloister Brewery.
The color in your glass. I'd like to see the color of that beer cracked open.
This one.
Yeah, the one that you've got open. What's that? So
well,
it's real dark. I mean, Schwarzbier, what we're expecting.
Yeah. It's. I wouldn't know if this was classified as. I mean, it looks like a stout, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it is a stout or not, I wouldn't be able to say. The Germans have this thing called Reinheitsprinzip, that they only are allowed to use natural ingredients, no artificial chemicals or anything. So there's a bit of a difference between beers brewed in Germany and beers brewed in other countries. So
I did kind of know about that a little bit, that there was a limitation to what you can actually put in your beer in Germany for it to actually be beer.
Yeah.
And whereas in the UK we've got beers that have got ridiculous things in them.
Roasted marshmallow.
Whatever fruit is in season. Yeah.
Wasn't there something I saw with one of your episodes where you you almost spat it out because it tasted chocolate?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't remember spitting a chocolate beer out.
No, not. But it was a surprise for you because.
Maybe.
I want to go back and have a look. Certainly, we deliberately venture into weird tasting beers quite frequently on this show just to see what's going on.
Cool.
I had a wee look at our YouTube channel the other day, and there is some I remember Colin. I think it's episode 4. Colin brought the toasted marshmallow porter and that's a favorite of the show now. That Stay Puft Marshmallow Porter is a favorite. In the UK they'll put anything to beer. There's a is it Brut, the sparkling wine, like Prosecco kind of. There was a wee bit of time early last year, I think, where that was quite a popular thing to put in your beer. So I remember grabbing 2 or 3 different champagne-esque cans of beer and really enjoying them. Like they were like sparkling wine IPAs.
Okay.
Which was quite interesting. They'll put anything in beer to try it. Our beer of the year for the first year that we were a podcast was has passion fruit. Is it passion fruit that's in Topaz?
I don't think it's got passion fruit in it. I think it just comes from the hop profile.
Yeah, it's a passion. It's a passion fruit. Like you say, it builds itself as sort of a passion fruit-esque beer, and then it was a raspberry wheat beer that won it last year. So just there now,
which does have raspberries.
Yeah, it does have
raspberries with locally grown raspberries. So Jeff, what are you drinking today then?
I just finished Comtour, which was a dark beer. I wish I drank it too quickly. It's a small bottle. Don't blame me. It was from the Brower family brewery in Poland. I got it in a beer 52 box. It was really nice. It took a couple of mouthfuls just to feel the vibe. It was quite strong, but by the end of it, very smooth, kind of smoked caramel. There was a smokiness to it. There was a caramel to it. It was really, really good. And it falls into that trap that often happens with Beer 52 boxes when you buy a subscription box and you learn a new beer, and then you Google and you realise it's going to cost an arm and a leg to get more copies of that beer. But I'm quite excited because there's a couple other brewer family brewery bottles in this the Polish box that Beer 52 did this month. So I'm quite excited. I really enjoyed it. And I moved on to this. I made like a kind of agreement with myself that I usually get about 2 beers done a podcast. So I thought I'll do like a relatively weird one that we'd pick out of a box or from the Caledonian Craft Beer Premium is the word I was looking for. Caledonian Craft Beer Merchant or something local, and then something supermarket. I thought that was quite a cool compromise. I picked up this from our local supermarket today. This is this week. This is called Perpetuous. It's by Kirkstall Brewery. It says it's a hazy session IPA with Citra, Centennial, and Chinook hoops. I like Chinook hops. Chinook hoops. Say Chinook hops 5 times really fast.
Beer these days.
Yeah. No, it's nice. A nice citrus beer with like a really. It's very citrusy. It's got a good like floral. I think I got like something like 10 cans for £8, which it was the last crate that they had there. 4.2, so it's a reasonable sort of IPA strength. It's just quite nice. Quite happily, nice colour, nice citrusy taste. Good. I was quite impressed actually. What are you drinking, Colin?
Well, I couldn't get any dark beers because lockdown and not going out very far and work and stuff. So I've got an IPA that my daughter picked up for me called Quantum State. It's from Atom Beers, who I think are based in Hull. So
neighbours.
Not a stone's throw from Grimsby.
Not really, no. Yeah, well, thanks a lot. Yeah.
So it's a kind of fairly straightforward, light, slightly citrus IPA. I wouldn't say there was anything outstanding about it. It's a run of the mill IPA. If it's cheap enough, I would certainly buy it again.
Yeah, I mean, Quantum State's a supermarket number, isn't it? I recognise it from Asda, I think, and it's in the sort of £150 to £2 range. So it's not a beer. I do remember we had about this time last year. You were unable. There was a couple of weeks where you weren't about, and so James covered and came and joined us. And James talked a lot about. Remind me the name of the brewery.
Atom.
Atom. I've got a couple beers that you can buy locally now. When James he grew up in Manchester, and he remembers Atom becoming kind of like an up and coming brewery in the beer scene when he was at uni, and I think he brought it on because he was like, I bought this in Asda, and this is like 5-10 years ago. This was a local beer, and he was quite impressed by that and quite moved. So it's cool. I like that.
Awesome.
Thomas is saying that he is drinking a local IPA with high hops, which is good.
You've got to have high hops.
Is that a song?
Yeah, it's like high hops.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were doing. I was like,
so this Beer 52, is that like the Britannia book club for beers then?
Yeah, pretty much.
There's quite a few of them. There is quite a few of them. Most breweries have their own one. So like, I was speaking to my line manager today actually, and she was saying, "Oh, I got a Brewdog box." And obviously, she felt the need to tell me because I have the beer podcast at work. So she's like, "Jeff, me and my husband, we got ourselves a Brewdog box." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And she said, "Oh, it's every month for £30, Brewdog will send you a case of beer." And Brewdog are quite a big brewery in Scotland just now. So I think most breweries do. I know Tiny Rebel do one as well, for example. But then Beer 52 is like it's a subscription service. So you pay whatever it is a month, and they'll send you beers, often with a theme. So like for Christmas, it was all Polish beer, which was pretty cool.
There are loads of these companies sprung up. recently, I think, that are kind of bundling beers and selling them on. In fact, on my Facebook the last few days, that's all the adverts I've been getting are for these beer boxes. You know, clearly with the lockdown and things, you know, it's maybe more difficult for people to get beer, so they're spending a bit of money on their advertising, and that's all I'm getting at the moment. And all these weird and wonderful beers. I've been tempted by many, I have to say.
They're quite good. You should have a wee look. I would say to just about anybody. Often they're really, I don't want to be that guy, but they're really easy to come out of any subscription you make. And with Beer 50, you know, you can cancel. A lot of them have like, or most of them either have like a cancel anytime policy. So you're not tied down to anything. Often they've also got really good introductory offers. Beer 52 in particular, for a wee while, we're giving you a box for nothing, and you're just paying postage. I know around about Christmas they were doing a thing called the golden ticket, where in your beer box you got a ticket, and if you gave that to a friend, your friend was able to get their first box for nothing.
Oh wow!
How come you give me a ticket?
Because I gave it to my mother-in-law, and then she bought the beer, and then I took the beer box off her and got more beer.
Nice. What did your mother-in-law drink?
Oh, she just drinks wine, but she's just a nice lady. So I was like, "See, this golden ticket. Can you subscribe? I'll show you how to do it." So she subscribed, got the box, then unsubscribed it. So I got free beer, and she didn't have to pay it.
Not what did she think? What did she drink?
Oh, what did she drink? She's a wine drinker, so she was. I don't know what else you've got. You got Beer 52 is the big one, I think. You've got Beer Hawk. You've got Honest Brew. There's loads of them. You just beer subscription. There's loads, and then as I say, a lot of breweries do their own equivalent as well. So if you pay X amount a month, you'll get often the Beer 52 one's quite good because you get beer, but you also get like a snack, and then like you'll get like peanuts or something and a magazine, and then your wife will come in and take the peanuts, and you never actually get to see if they're any good or not. But yeah. Totally agree.
It sounds like it's easier to get out of than the Britannia Book Club. I think my mum had to tell them I was dead. It's pretty dark, really. What was it?
Thomas is saying that he likes the model of that. Like, I think as most people are like, "Oh, what was this? You just get beer delivered." But he lives in Argentina, which is a wine country, so it's easy to get like a wine subscription service, but no beer ones that he knows of. Sadly, it is a shame. It's a pretty cool thing, and it's really good for these beer subscriptions. Get every so often, like I have seen somewhere, there was one of the services. I don't know which one that was, but one of the services got a bad name because somebody worked out that if you went to a number of supermarkets, you could get the beer that was in the box, and it would be billed as premium. But there was maybe, I think for the Quantum State one that you drank, Colin, was one of the ones that was in the box, and somebody had worked out, they're like, I paid 30 quid for this, and I could go and get Quantum State from Asda for like £1.29 or whatever it was. So they were quite angry. Whereas I think Beer 52 in particular specialises in they deliberately give you beer that you wouldn't be able to access, so that you're able to get like a so even if it is a local beer, it's not local to you. So I had there was a number of beers I got in a couple of months ago that were great, and they're from a brewery in Brighton. So it wouldn't have been a brewery that I would be aware of or maybe access. Even if I was, it would be quite tricky to access. Whereas I was able to fall in love with it. And
so it's been lovely to hear about your German beers today, Rob. Thanks for shopping specially for us.
Well, I mean, I didn't really have much choice. They don't have, for example, Smiths. They have the German equivalent, Schmitz.
What's beer like in Germany? Like, what's the culture? What's the prices?
It's lager. It's lager, which is essentially, a German beer. Lager is my German friends, they always say, "Oh, British beer is so warm, you drink it hot, etc., etc." Which is obviously it's obviously rubbish. But the way you store traditionally, the way you store lager beers is different. I mean, the word lager what we know as Lager actually means something else in Germany. It means you leave it. Es ist gelagert, es wird gelagert. That it's stored in a very cool place, and this is there's a specific reason why it has to be served chilled. Whereas, of course, several, usually when we drink bitters, etc., it's not chilled. It's it's not a regular. I don't know. I don't even know what the temperature of bitter should be, but it's not freezing cold at least.
Mm-hmm.
So the majority of the German beer is, it's blonde beer. It's like a lager. Does anybody here speak English?
It's like a blonde ale, don't you? You have like just that.
Yeah, so I mean, you can get dark beers. Because I lived in Cologne for like 15 years, or roundabout. I like to drink Kölsch. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Kölsch before. No? Okay, if you could find it.
I really want to know.
Yeah, if you could find it in the UK, it's worth checking out. It's okay. There are different breweries that make Kölsch, for example, Fru, which is like a huge brewery in Cologne. And it's a tourist trap, but it's not a bad one. The locals go there, of course. Cologne has a huge beer culture, especially, when there's not a global pandemic going on. Then Cologne is the city in Germany that you go to for Carnival.
Yeah.
And Carnival is like it's a citywide party. That's what it is. And there are two main dates for Carnival. One is the 11th of the 11th, which for us is kind of like, like as a Brit living in Germany, and everyone being very, obviously respectful because of the war. The end of the First World War was also the 11th of November. But in Cologne, it's the beginning of the Carnival season. So it's a huge damn party. So I have to hang my head in shame and say, yes, I celebrate pretty much every year that I can the 11th of the 11th in Germany, no less. And and
that's quite fascinating historically as well, though, because you celebrate. I don't know. It's obviously Germany didn't fare massively well at the end of World War One. Did it was kind of the beginning. It was the end of a horrendous conflict and the beginning of some really rubbish times for the place. So the fact that that's the designated time for Carnival is, I find, quite culturally fascinating.
But it goes back. I mean, it's biblical. It's to do with the Bible, and I can't even remember how many days before, for example, Easter. Well, I mean, Carnival is to do with Easter, right? Because it's the time you can eat meat until before you go into the 40 days of Lent.
Okay.
So it's lunar. It changes every year. However, the 11th of the 11th is the start of the Carnival season, and that starts on the same day every year. 11th of the 11th at 11 minutes past 11. Just to make it easy for everybody to remember.
All the ones.
Awesome, man. It's actually we tend to finish off by chatting about the comics we've read. I don't know if you want to hang around, if you want to, but before we move on, do you want to plug your social media so folk know where to find you?
Oh yeah, cool. How would I do that? In Instagram, Rob G Price Tunes. Is there anywhere where I could type here, or
if you click on comments, I'm on Twitter just now trying to find you, so I can just find your at.
Yeah. Okay, so hashtag Rob G Price Tunes. Boom, and Twitter Rob G Price at Rob G Price. Yo. Okay. That's a point. Yeah, I also have my recent mentor Tommy Mark, who came out with the Best Korea book last year, and he's working on Not Daredevil at the moment. And his next book is the I don't want to say the Ninja Kid. It's not the Ninja Kid. It is the what's the blue guy in Indian religion? Krishna Kid. The Krishna Kid. Okay. He's been pushing me to get onto Indiegogo. Basically, my Ratl and Roll one was just me. You know, like I took the time and went straight to self-publishing. Now he's kind of pushed me in the direction of Indiegogo to actually help get a base of followers, which of course, I mean, that's an intelligent thing to do, yeah, rather than just like throw myself into the world and say, hey, everybody, look at me, I got a comic, and nobody knowing who I am, you know. So that's what I got to work on, and I've never worked with Indiegogo before, so I have absolutely zero idea what I'm doing. So at least I've got a what do you call it? A launch page, not a launch page, a landing page. If you sign up for the email, you will get, and here's a mock-up. I haven't finished them yet, so for people who have actually signed up, you will be getting, this is a mock-up, a poster. On one side, there's going to be a poster and a zine.
Nice.
Da-da, 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 which kind of gives you a bit of the story so far, but that's not an excuse for not buying issue 1. And that's what. Thank you very much. That's what I'll be sending out when that's finished.
Okay. Superb. Awesome.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely amazing, man. Colin, what have you been reading this week?
I've been reading. I think I mentioned it towards the end of last week's show. I picked up The Resistance Volume 1 from AWA. Because we've liked stuff from AWA already. And this was completely out of my comfort zone because it is kind of superheroes.
I know. You said that.
Superheroes masquerading as sci-fi. And this is J. Michael Straczynski is the writer on this. He's done Amazing Spider-Man. He's done, I think, Thor, but he is probably better. Well, maybe he's not well known for it, but he's the writer of Babylon 5 as well. And the artist Mike Deodato, who's also Amazing Spider-Man as well. And it's a story about set in the kind of modern times. It's about that's the one. There's a pandemic, a global pandemic. Huh, amazing. This was written several months before everything kicked off in the world. And the premise is that this pandemic kills off hundreds of millions of people, but it also, bizarrely, affects a very small minority and gives them superpowers. And it's kind of an odd story. It's a bit of an odd story, and it doesn't seem to be following any kind of one particular character. It jumps about from all over the world. Kind of starts off the USA, and then we've got some political characters. We've got some people with superpowers who are starting to form a group. It jumps to North Korea and shows what's happening there. It jumps to New Mexico, where a meteorite landed and might be the source of the pandemic. And it jumps all around the world and kind of shows these little vignettes of what's happening around the world in response to this pandemic and the birth of these superpowers as well. So it's a really odd story in the way that it's told, because it does kind of eventually does settle on this one character who wants to become part of a superhero team, but he's kind of powers are kind of too generic, and he decides, actually, I don't want to be part of this. I just want to do my own thing. And then he gets kind of roped into the titular The Resistance, which is a kind of superhero group trying to do good and not be controlled by governments or big corporations. So it's kind of treading similar ground to some other things, a bit like... well, the thing that does spring to mind is Death Sentence by Monte Nero, because his Death Sentence story is about a virus, a sexually transmitted virus that gives people superpowers. But the drawback is that you only live for 6 months, and there's or so many months, And there's a similar thing in this, where some of the people that get superpowers, they only live for a short space of time, and they're called moths. For some reason, they're given this term, a moth. And there's going to be a spin-off comic called Moths, a series about those characters. So that's kind of where it is at the moment. The jumps all over the place, the story, and it's intriguing enough that I think I probably will pick up the next volume to see where it goes. But it's kind of hard to kind of pigeonhole it, because it's very science fiction, but it's also a bit of superheroes and very political as well. So, bizarre one, but good.
That's a really good one.
The thing about the moths.
Reading?
I know. I was thinking about the Resistance stuff, man. But first, that just sounds really, really awesome. I really like how AWA do that. I would be interested to, as we've had John Lees on, who wrote for AWA, did the hotel, obviously, and what I find quite amazing about AWA is that they give so much freedom to their creators, but the background of the foundation and of the business is by a former Marvel editors, isn't it? So it's a really fascinating comics corporation. I don't know if that's the right word I would use.
There's actually a bit about that in the back of the book. There's a couple of pages where the writer of this is talking about how he kind of roped into it with Axel Alonso, who is the former Marvel editor that's behind, or one of the main guys behind AWA. So there's a couple of pages that kind of explains that, which I don't think has appeared in any of the other books. So it was interesting to read that in itself.
Well, it's a bit of bravery and a bit of... AWA are just a really interesting... I've got... I haven't finished it, mind you, but I've got Red Border, which AWA put out last year as well. And that's getting really good reviews. I think... I can't remember the publication, but it was in the top 20 comics of the year. So AWA are, a relatively new organization, but they're hitting really heavy, and they're I think they're a company to look towards in the future, definitely.
They're picking up top-notch artists and writers, that are maybe been a little bit displaced in the last year or so.
Just also like up-and-comers as well. Obviously John Lees is he's a bit of a name in comics in Scotland, but like this is him great. This is like it's almost like he's been signed. Like when you're like, oh, he's a local hero, he's a local lad done well. But it's just really cool that because his hotel's been really, really well received as well, isn't it? So I read Death Inc. By Charles H. Raymond. Actually, I can screen share it a wee bit better. Would help, because I actually found it. So, an independent comic produced by Charles Raymond through his publication called Not So Tiny. So, if you go to notsotiny.co.uk, you'll be able to access the first issue of this. Death Inc.'s are really... I found it on Comic House, which is an app I use. We talk about it quite a lot on the show. It's £3 a month, and it allows you to read other independent comic writers. Well, it allows you to read independent comic writers, and a lot of independent comic writers, including us, have put up our work on that as a forum for people to see our stuff. So it's £3 a month. It's really cheap. It's massively incredible value for money, and I spend quite a lot of time on it just looking for stuff that I don't know or I haven't heard of, or stuff that I maybe would have missed if it was at a convention or a shop. And I found Death Inc. A really fascinating story about. I'll just leave that there because it's just great. So this idea is that the Grim Reaper has been around since the beginning of time, supporting people dying through to the afterlife or to wherever it was. And then he realizes, as the time goes on, he realizes that this job is massive, and it's going to be a job that he's going to have to continue doing forever. So he develops this place called Afterlife, which is basically the world that folk inhabit after they die, and he becomes the CEO of Death Incorporated, which is the corporation that oversees Afterlife, which is the place you go when you die. It's after your life, and so it's a really complicated story that's multifaceted, and I really enjoyed it. And as I say, it's been broken into 3 graphic novels on Comic House, and I read all 3 of them in an evening this week, and was massively entertained throughout. It follows this main character as he passes away, and as the Grim Reaper comes to meet him and support him through to the afterlife, and then he realizes, you'll realize very quickly that he isn't actually Death. He's an employee of Death Incorporated, who is a Grim Reaper that is employed to support people, because so many folk die every day on Earth that it would be unfeasible for Death to do all the collections of spirits himself. So he has a business model. So there's all that going on. There's loads of really interesting stuff. There's no animals, and there's no children in Afterlife. So that, because there's a mystery involved in that. So there's a news. It's like the Death Gazette. A journalist for Death Gazette is trying to work out where all the children and the animals go when they die. So there's a subplot. There's also a plot with a private investigator character who finds a dead body in Afterlife, and obviously, how can you die if you've already died? So that becomes a subplot, and also there's just a story of a young man who right at the start of issue 1 gets hit by a bus, and so he passes away, and he's just going to come to terms with the fact that he's dead, and he now has to live a completely new life in another sort of plane of existence. And then there's a whole point about Death's day-to-day business being the CEO of this huge corporation, and all these little subplots all tie in together, and it's just really enjoyable. Very funny. And again, like I mentioned to you guys earlier about, I did read the blurb and said, like, a very funny comic about death, and I wonder if Charles had written that himself as his blurb, and I wonder how comfortable, because I was quite cynical, thinking surely you're a bit up yourself if you say something's funny, but it was very funny. I laughed out loud a couple of times, and it was just a really enjoyable reading experience, and I would recommend it to everybody. So I've got I'll stick a banner up for it. So it's you can get Death Incorporated 1 to 3 on Not So Tiny Comics. So if you go to @NotSoTiny on Facebook or Twitter, you'll find all that. But also there is a notsotiny.co.uk. You'll be able to access all the work there. And then, as I say, Comic House as well has all 3 graphic novels. And Charles has got loads of other stuff as well. So it was just a really good experience. And it reminded me of that one that you let me last year, Colin, about the young lady who wants to become the sidekick of the supervillain. I can't remember what that was called.
Nimona.
No, Nimona. And that was, it was very thematic and emotionally comparable to that. So it was pretty cool.
Well, that's a good recommendation then. I've got to check it out.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. Yeah. What do you read, Rob? What's your comic?
Oh, being over here, the postage. Like I've been I read issue 1 of the 77, and I've been wanting to read the others, but I'm just kind of like hanging on for one more issue. Then I I'll get them all posted at the same time, because otherwise, like, individual posting. Thing is, I mean, digital is okay, but I prefer the feel of the comic in the hand. Exactly. What I have read, what I read last year, or maybe it was a year before, was a full Bone, which is great. I think you all know Bone, right?
Yeah.
Jeff Smith. Yeah, and that was excellent. I mean, years ago, here and there, I picked up a couple of issues, but then through one of the bookstores here, they had a special discount on for certain books, and I looked, and the full, 1,200 whatever page special came into that category, and I thought, oh, I've got to have that. Yeah. Also, what's really funny, it's not a pitch for Ratl and Roll, but like 2 different people have said that it reminds them of Cerebus. And I
Of course. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remember Cerebus from, I'm sure I'd read parts of it, or maybe the odd issue back in the 80s, maybe in the 90s. So yeah, I did track down High Society. So I read that recently. I'm again, it's kind of like sounding like I'm only going for the funnies, but in the past few years, I've ordered the the compendium graphic novels for Halo Jones. What have I got? The Watchmen, of course, and V for Vendetta, and I have a whole load of different stuff. This will maybe make you laugh. I don't know. It was just on my printer, was the last cheeky annual I didn't own. So I ordered this about 3 weeks ago, and I've been taking my time with it. I do get the odd German comic on the Russian Troll Factory. What do you call it? Show about 4 weeks ago. We read Asterix. Yeah, there was some. Yeah, and that Asterix is great. And there were some guests from America that were Rot 10, Glory from the US. He's like, I'm not into it. But Copernicus was well into it because he realized you can get it in Scots English. Did you know that?
I didn't.
It's yeah. Give me a sec. I'll go get it. I've got English and the Pects. Asterix and the Pects. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, a little bit of all sorts.
Yeah, quite a range of boy. Yeah, but obviously your first love is the cheeky and all those humor comics of that era.
For sure, yeah.
That's really cool. Awesome. Yeah, so I think that's us. Is that us? It feels like
that's us. Yeah, you've had enough of me, guys. That's good. And thank you very much.
We for the last wee while, we've always been trying to keep it to less than an hour, but we've had such amazing guests and such amazing conversation recently that we are keeping the 90 minutes every time, which is great. It's really nice to have you on, Rob, and we'll definitely get you back on again, particularly when when issue 2's out and you've got something you're wanting to start plugging it. It'd be great to have you back on.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. I would love to. Yeah. And thank you very much. And thanks, actually. I think I found you on, I don't know if it was on Twitter or on Facebook, but yeah, I expect more comments from me in the future. Cheers.
Absolutely amazing.
Good luck with your Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. See you next week, Colin. I think we've got our guest. No, we do. I was like, I couldn't remember who we had. The boys from USUC Chronicles are going to bring. So next week, expect it to be a wee bit more geeky and a bit more beery, but it's slightly less comic-y. I think the boys are menaces. So next week should be quite a funny one. So yeah, we'll share closer time. Cheers, Colin. I'm out of beer. But
awesome.
Cheers.
I've no idea what to expect next week, so
we're good.
I look
Cheers,
forward
guys.
to it. Cheers.
Cheers.